Welcome to the Cloud Pod, where the forecast is always cloudy. We talk weekly about all things AWS, GCP, and Azure. We are your hosts,
Justin,
Jonathan,
Ryan,
and Matthew.
Episode 227, the Cloud Pod Peeps at Azure Explicit Proxy. Good evening, Matt, Ryan, and Jonathan. Full house tonight.
Hey guys.
hello.
Hey all.
Hey. We missed you all. We struggled to get people on the same call at the same time for the summer. Hopefully it gets a little better as we continue down through the rest of the year. But, or we just need to figure out a different way to record. I'm not really sure what it'll be. But, here we are. We get all four of us. And we got an action-packed show. So first up, Werner is here to talk about EC2 Classic. And really, goodbye, EC2 Classic, as they finally turned off the last EC2 Classic instance on August 15th, 2 years after Jeff Barr wrote the blog post saying they were going to kill it. Werner points out that the reason it was classic is because of the network architecture. All instances launch on a giant 10.0.0.0/8 flat network shared between all customers with only a security group separating them apart. The process for end users is simple, but apparently it was very highly complex for AWS at the time. And he points out that the M1 Small that launched was equivalent of one virtual CPU powered by a 1.7 gigahertz Xeon processor with 1.75 gigs of RAM and 160 gigs of local disk, and a whopping 250 megabits per second of network bandwidth for the low price of 10 cents per clocked hour. It's amazing how far hardware's come in 15 years. Warner's blog, he said he even ran on the M1 Small for about 5+ years before he moved it to Amazon S3 website feature and went serverless, where he's been now for 12 years. And he talked about VPC's introduction in 2013, allowed AWS customers, of course, have their own slice of the AWS cloud. But Classic still lived on for another decade. And the EC2 team kept Classic running until every instance was retired or migrated, providing the necessary documentation, tools, and support from engineering and account management throughout the process. And Werner likes to point out that this is one of the best examples of delivering cloud for today's workload as well as tomorrow's, and how AWS won't pull the rug out from underneath you like some other competitors might.
Yeah.
Azure and Google.
Yeah. Certainly veiled there. I think most people know who he was referring to there. But it is cool. I mean, the fact that they were able to actually retire a thing and not just turn it off on people is pretty amazing.
Yeah, and keeping it running with all the documentation and support and everything else, it's kind of an impressive feat while supporting something that's at a much larger scale.
Yeah. I mean, by the time VPC launched, and after that was kind of like the rocket ship that was cloud after VPC's launched. And so you had to imagine that EC2 Classic, which really is only ever in US East 1, was, a very, very small infrastructure and comparatively to everything else.
It was in West 1 too, US West 1, because I know I did a couple migrations there.
West 1 doesn't even exist.
Back in the day, it was there. You get to pay an extra 10% to run your workloads there.
Yeah. I don't know where that data center is in San Jose. Like, I know it's down there somewhere. It's got to be like an Acronex facility somewhere down there. I've always forget that region exists because it's ridiculously expensive and has none of the services that people care about.
No.
I'm actually surprised it didn't make it to London as well, because London came pretty early on in the Amazon era, but maybe it came right after VPCs, so it just didn't make it.
At least there weren't that gateway charges or all that complexity.
There was not. That's true. It's a simpler time, Jonathan. A simpler time. Amazon SES is now offering you email delivery and engagement history for every email sent through the SES system. The new delivery feature helps customers troubleshoot individual email delivery problems, confirm delivery of critical messages, and identify engaged recipients on a granular single email basis. Senders can investigate trends in delivery performance and see delivery and engagement status for each email sent by SES. This makes it easier for customers to manage and optimize their delivery and campaign performance. This is actually a feature you paid a lot of money for from a lot of email spam companies to be able to do this kind of tracking. So to have this just be part of SES for really a very low cost, it's like for every 1,000 messages, it's like 7 cents. It's like super cheap. So this is an area that's become very commodity apparently in spam delivery, or for in email delivery for customers who care about actually getting emails to you, like e-commerce vendors who actually want to make sure you get their receipts, all those type of things. All now coming through SES, which is pretty great.
Yeah, that's kind of crazy. I didn't realize that it was sort of just built in to SES, because there's a healthy industry of companies providing that level of service.
I can't wait for them to start analyzing all the messages that you send and then give you some kind of metric based on engagement and the content. It could use AI to advise on which style of message worked or what kind of language worked and that kind of thing. Give you some useful feedback for marketing.
Feedback will be directly in the machine, right? And then the next emails will write themselves.
So what I actually like, I turned it on for my account because I have some notification coming from, I think, my primary web server that is bouncing. And I haven't been able to figure out what it is because, of course, I don't get email for the bounces or for the send because it's not getting to where it needs to go. And so I was able to actually use this, turn it on, and then basically have it send me an alert for every failed email that gets sent out, which I will turn off very quickly. But I will at least be able to figure out why my reputation score is like at 8%. Which is not bad. It's not in the red zone where they're going to yell at me, but it's above the warning level. And I would like to get that down to 0, especially since I only send 32 emails a month. Seems like a really high percentage for what it is. So I definitely want to get that fixed. But I don't exactly know what it is. So I'm actually kind of excited for this feature because it's going to tell me exactly what email it was and who was going to and why it failed. And so I'm anxiously awaiting for the next one to go out so I get an email.
I mean, in theory, you're supposed to have the SNS set up to automatically remove that person and follow all those things at the SES team, which is by far my least favorite team there.
It's probably like auto block notifications to myself. So they're just not set up properly in the SES sender. So it's something stupid. I just don't know what it is. And to go, I went one day to go look at the send mail logs. I didn't have send mail logging turned on. And I was like, do I really want to turn this on? Because that just seems like a way I can run out of disk space. And so I just haven't got there. So I'm going to see where it ends up this way instead. This isn't a big pressing issue, as you can tell, because I could have solved this in 100 different ways, but now I have this way. So I'm going to try this one.
Mm-hmm. This one was easy because I went click,
click, click.
And it's a managed service. Yeah.
Sometimes easy is best.
It is.
All right. Well, Google did not make my life easy today. And so because I was annoyed at this blog post, I decided to be snarky about it. And so I'm going to go through these. There's 161 things they apparently announced at Google Cloud Next. And so, not all those things were on main stage, of course, and that we covered last week. So none of these are like AI things, really, although there are some duet AI things in here, I guess, technically. So some of them are AI, so I'll show you back. But these are the ones that kind of struck my interest, and I thought I'd tell you about them and then give you my snarky response to them. So you can, tell me how I did. So first up, reinforcement learning with human feedback, or RLHF, is now in public preview. See, Skynet, you may still need us in the future.
Thumbs up.
Yeah, I like it.
Grounding in Vertex AI routes generative outputs in your enterprise data to increase confidence in your generative AI search and conversational applications. See, Ryan, it's not about electricity.
How do I understand this less now?
I don't know. We did talk about this one last week, but I didn't understand it then either.
If it's not about electricity, I'm farther away.
So what I think this is that you can basically give it your data as a grounding source to the AI, so you don't have to feed that into every prompt. And then your prompts already have that grounding data to apply to the model so that you don't have to train a custom model for your use case. I think is what it does. If I were to read through the tea leaves, and if anybody out there is listening to this and is like, well, that's what it does, don't take my word for it. That's what I think it does. So I haven't read any documentation, but that's the gist that I've gotten out of watching a couple sessions. And
no, that kind of makes sense. You don't want to generate a new model every data set.
Yeah.
It's a way of providing facts because and it helps stop hallucinations and things like that. But it's about providing facts which can be verified like before. After a response has been generated, you can then go back and compare it with the fact list. Make sure that it's not spouting a bunch of crap.
This is about the snark, not about the facts, Jonathan. Move on. MedPalm 2, their medically tuned version of Palm 2, will be available as a preview to more customers in healthcare and life science industry. MedPalm is the relative of napalm, thrice removed, just so you keep that in mind.
All I can think about is the Palm Pilot.
Yeah.
It's just my dad's old Palm Pilot that he used to love and was really mad when it broke.
Yep. Duet AI is in preview across a variety of products in the data analytics, including Looker, BigQuery, and Dataplex. I appreciate being able to blame the data on someone other than me. Hey, it was my Duet partner, I swear. They now support Hootie and Delta Lake within Big Lake and added performance acceleration for Apache Iceberg. Sadly, there were no hoodies at the conference, and Iceberg ahead. Big Lake can now be your single lakehouse with cross-cloud materialized views and cross-cloud joins in BigQuery Omni. Seems like a pretty lonely Big Lake with only one lakehouse, though.
You don't really want any neighbors in your lake house, though. I want
True.
it all to myself.
I mean, if it's big enough, I don't really care. BigQuery data clean rooms can help you understand your Google and YouTube campaign performance. If only it could help us figure out our podcast performance.
Yeah, there's no hope for that.
Now you can access thousands of datasets from hundreds of providers, including Axiom, Bloomberg, Equifax, Nielsen, and Zoom Info directly in BigQuery. Or how I like to think of it, my crazy uncle points out that Google is biased by the left with all these data sources.
I love it.
Cloud Spanner Data Boost, now generally available, lets you analyze your spanner data via services such as BigQuery, Spark on Dataproc, or Dataflow with virtually no impact to your transactional workloads. And your CFO wept. And if I had $1 for every time someone said virtually no impact, I'd be retired.
Yeah. Yep.
A new BigQuery export to Bigtable reverse ETL feature in preview lets you serve analytical insights from your applications without having to touch an ETL tool. Thank God the only thing worse they could have done was announce their own version of Glue.
I love the idea of a reverse ETL tool. You load it like untransformed?
It was sort of like, I don't really know what this is, but reverse ETL, sure.
Yeah. So
this is you ETL it, and then this is the way you undo it. So when you break your original data set, you can recreate it.
Fully managed memory store for Redis cluster is now in preview. Easy to use, open source compatible Redis cluster service that provides up to 60 times more throughput than memory store for Redis with microsecond latencies. And please reset the cache. Mm-hmm. Which one?
Mm-hmm.
Which cache?
All of them.
Because you have two there. That's two caches. Bigtable change streams feature allows you to capture data changes to Bigtable table as the changes happen, letting you stream them for processing or analysis. Don't cross the Kafka streams. Cloud Bigtable request priorities in preview let you execute large workloads that are not time sensitive as low priority jobs in the Bigtable cluster and minimizing the impact of batch processing on your serving workloads. If the query ran when I wasn't staring at the console, did it really happen?
So now I just have to turn this on and I can still use full table scans for everything then, right?
Yeah, it only costs you an arm and a leg. So.
Yeah.
Looker Studio users now have native access to Alteryx Designer Cloud for data preparation and enhanced cloud connectivity, starting with Excel and CSV files from storage formats including SharePoint and OneDrive. If your loved one is suffering from dashboard envy, try Alteryx. Side effects may include dizziness, nausea, vomiting, and unhappiness with data displayed. New multi-slice technology in preview lets you scale AI workloads beyond the boundaries of physical TPU pods with tens of thousands of cloud TPU v5e or TPU v4 chips. This also produces bills beyond the boundaries of your CFO's imagination.
Mm-hmm. Forecast that.
Exactly.
On your TPUs.
ARM-based C3A powered by Ampere 1 processors will be in preview next month. Hey guys, remember when ARM was all the rage? Didn't even make the main stage this time. Ouch, how the mighty have fallen.
Yeah.
C3 VM support for Hyperdisk Extreme is now in preview and supports 500,000 IOPS. Cha-ching!
All the IOPS all the time.
Why do you need 500,000 IOPS? Like,
see, the thing is, you're better for not knowing the answer to that question. And so I'd like to move on.
Yeah.
Hyperdisk storage, now in preview, allows customers to provision capacity and performance in aggregate pools and then thinly provision hyperdisk volumes. I'm hyper excited to troubleshoot this.
You get a lot of IOPS. Woohoo.
VMs have new uptime SLAs, a 99.95% for memory optimized VMs and a 99.9% for all other VM families. This is Google, and we know these numbers are a dream anyways and made up. Future reservations, now in preview, is a new compute engine feature that allows you to reserve compute capacity for a future date. Now, Google doesn't like it when I say this, but they're not very cloudy. But come on, you're making it this easy that I have to predict my future? Come on. VMware engine nodes have been upgraded with 2 terabyte RAM options and 64 to 128 vCPUs and up to 50 terabytes of storage for Google Cloud VMware Engine, as well as 3 new storage options, NetApp volumes, file store, and storage-only vSAN nodes. Finally, the VMware offering is matched to the last servers I purchased to run VMware at scale, Had a job 12 years ago. Appreciate that. Thank you for that.
It fits right with the workload, though.
Yep. New service extension callouts for cloud load balancers let you customize services such as specialized monitoring, logging, traffic steering, or authentication. And I don't have a joke for this. I'm just here for the future. This is great. But then there's this feature. Automation Solution Toolkit for Google Cloud Load Balancer Global Front Ends lets you integrate and automate products, including Cloud Armor, Cloud Load Balancing, and Cloud CDN into popular CI/CD platforms. And of course, it's Jenkins.
Yes.
Get the fuck out, Google.
Yeah. Of course, it's Jenkins.
Always Jenkins.
Broadcom is integrating its secure web gateway natively into Google Cloud. Broadcom, you mean the guys who own VMware? Yeah, I'm going to pass. Elasticsearch, MongoDB, Enterprise Advanced, and SAP are all available on Google Distributed Cloud, available via Google Cloud Marketplace. You're really starting to scratch the bottom of the barrel on these 160 Google. Really getting difficult.
Yeah.
New Bastion host on GDC Edge in preview enables you to easily view and control Google Cloud access to GDC Edge for troubleshooting purposes, supporting you with operational sovereignty and compliance requirements. Ah, crap, Google Edge is down. Call Google and get them to fix their crap. They say they can't log in. Crap, the Bastion is down too. No! They partner with GitLab to offer a secure DevOps solution with integrated source management, artifact management, CI/CD, and enhanced security. At least someone still finds GitLab relevant.
Ouch.
The Google Maps platform team introduced environment APIs for solar, air quality, and pollen. Gesundheit. Agentless vulnerability scanning by Tenable is integrated into SEC, and I call shenanigans. There was no mention it was powered by Tenable last week or on main stage. Here we thought they were special. They were inventing something like Inspector. No. It's just a partner offering that they took credit for. Thanks for that. We expand the coverage footprint of our sensitive data protection offerings with enhanced integration for Dataplex and Dialogflow and Cloud SQL. This is really to protect those services from Ryan, who is not sensitive in this regard. Not at all. The Google Cloud Certified Professional Cloud Security Engineer Exam Guide is now available. Step 1, it's GCCPCSE certification. You will be quizzed. Oh, wow. Google Chat now supports up to 500,000 participants in a single space to help build thriving communities, even in the largest organizations. They will, of course, need you to use AI or PubSub to build processing to keep up with the onslaught of messages from 500,000 users, but hey, that's another service they can sell you.
Yeah, 500,000 participants in a single space sounds like my worst nightmare.
Yeah, like I don't think you can even read. Like if everyone's chatting on that, no one's going to read it. It scrolls by too fast. It's like one of those live YouTube streams on Twitch streams with lots of followers. Duet AI for Google Workspaces can create a whole new presentation and slides, complete with text, charts, and images based on your relevant content in Drive and Gmail. Man, could you imagine the presentations based off my Google spam folder? Epic.
That said, my management career is off to a good start, though.
Yeah.
Got it.
Duet AI and Google Meet helps you look and sound your best with new AI-powered enhancements, including Studio Look, Studio Lighting, and Studio Sound, as well as dynamic tiles and automatic face detection, so remote attendees can see everyone in a meeting room, with each in-person attendee getting their own video tile with their name. I have zero notes on this, other than if you didn't force RTO, you wouldn't have to need this.
Just picturing and putting name badges on everyone with their name on it.
We announced the winners of the Google Cloud Customer Awards. Again, you don't seem to understand what a feature is, and this goes from 129 to 147 on the list. And 148 and 152 are just the same thing, but with startups. And then partners get covered from 153 to 160, and no one cares. And that is Google Next in a heartbeat.
It's like they didn't think you were going to read all the way through it, so they're just like padding the end thing. They'll never get this.
Yeah, I'm like at 129, all of a sudden it's like, here's all our customer stories that we presented at Google Next. Yeah. Like, those aren't features. You can't call this article features that you announced.
Dude, I got to like 90, maybe 100, and I started zoning out. So I figured there was another 70, 60 somewhere in there.
Yeah, I mean, you weren't that far off if you stopped at the customers. You only had 50 more to go. So.
Yeah.
All right, well, that's fun. I enjoyed it. Now let's move on to Azure, which I won't enjoy. Azure continues to release weird insight tools for things that I thought already gave insights, But VM Insights provide a quick and easy method to monitor the client workloads on your Azure virtual machines and virtual machine scale sets, as well as Azure Arc-enabled servers running on premises or multi-cloud. And again, this feature is Azure Monitor VM Insights using Azure Monitor Agent. Thank you, Azure. Appreciate it.
It's just an agent to gathers the logs and metrics.
Yeah, it did note in the article if you're using the old legacy Azure log agent, that's been deprecated and you should move to this, which is not clear in the title of this at all. It's about logs. So I appreciate that. Azure Firewall now supports explicit proxy mode on all the outbound paths. And I really love this support of the porn industry. Oh, no, it's not that. With this enabled, you have the option to configure a proxy setting directly on the sending application, such as a web browser, with Azure Firewall acting as a designated proxy. This configuration allows traffic from the sending application to be directed to the private IP address of the firewall, facilitating direct egress from the firewall without the need for a UDR, which, again, that sounds like a weird disease. I don't know how this involved, but there you go.
Pretty sure Jonathan knows how this works, but I'm lost. Our proxy expert's nodding his head.
It's after 5.
So I basically think what it is instead of setting the proxy at the server level, so all traffic routes through the firewall as your outbound proxy, you can now tell the web browser or the application using web browser settings to now use the proxy that you specified in the browser to access the internet. So you don't have to set that as all default traffic out through the firewall.
So, but if this is in the, I guess maybe useful if you're running like Azure Virtual Desktop and stuff like that. Just targeted at.
Maybe that's one option for it. But even in a server where you're making a call to an API, you don't necessarily want the entire server to access the internet. And right now, the way to do that is you'd have to set the default route as the firewall and then inspect all the traffic coming from the server. In this case, you only have to tell the API browser capability, whatever language you're using, that needs to be proxied through the proxy of the firewall, and then everything else can still stay on the default route with no route or route to some other part of your network that you care less about.
But that's client side. That's the
But a server is sometimes a client, Ryan. It's not always a server.
I mean, I guess the feature is that Azure Firewall now supports being a proxy for applications which are supported having proxy settings for 30 years. Which is actually quite a cool feature.
I just assumed that by default it did that. Like if you already supported proxy, I didn't realize there was a difference for it to support it at the application level versus the OS level.
Yeah.
But Azure Firewall isn't a proxy, is it? Well, it wasn't.
It wasn't before.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it's the firewall that is the explicit proxy, which is cool.
Yeah.
Because now you can just, instead of having your outbound traffic and egress rules for TCP ports and protocols, you can sort of have, your cake and eat it too, I assume.
Yeah, I mean, like thinking about locking down cloud presence for no internet access, except you need access for CrowdStrike and you need access for Datadog or New Relic or some other kind of logging thing. So you got like no internet access apart from the access that we need, and so having like Azure Firewall be able to support proxying those specific things is actually pretty useful.
User-defined routing, UDR. I had to look it up, sorry.
Yeah.
Have you been waiting months and months to hire your new AWS, GCP, or Azure architect, only to have them be poached at the 11th hour by a startup with a juice bar? Initiatives stalled because you're having trouble hiring? Well, I have a simple solution. Foghorn Consulting. Foghorn Consulting provides top-notch cloud engineers to the world's most innovative companies and can be burning down your DevOps and cloud backlogs as soon as next week. Foghorn certified AWS, GCP, and Azure professionals are armed with infrastructure as code, and from day one will be designing performant, optimized cloud-native or hybrid environments that deliver on the promise of cloud. Their FogOps solution even provides on-demand cloud engineering to augment your existing teams. Visit www.foghornconsulting.com or send an email to cloudtalentnow@foghornconsulting.com and tell them the CloudPod sent you. Your dedicated FogOps team is with you for the long haul, and they bring their own juice.
Well, last week when we recorded, Matt told us about an amazing outage happening in Australia for Azure. And so they announced their PIR to tell about their impacted system. So apparently August 30th to September 1st, from 8:41 UTC to 6:40 UTC, customers in Australia using Azure, M365, and Power BI services were out. The issue was caused by utility power sag in Australia East region, which tripped a subset of cooling units offline in one data center within one of the availability zones. While working to restore cooling, temperatures in the data center increased, so we proactively shut down a small subset of selected compute and storage scale units, kind of them, in an attempt to avoid damaging the hardware. Due to the size of the data center campus, the staffing of the team at night was insufficient to restart the chillers in a timely manner, and they have temporarily increased the team size, which I guess is good, but like, how long are you going to do that for? And like, are you going to predict when the next outage is going to happen so you can have the right number of staff there, or just hope that it's in this temporary window? And apparently the EOP for restarting chillers is slow to execute for an event with such a significant blast radius, and they're looking to improve the automation. Now, when I read through this, I had a bunch of thoughts, but I'm going to let Matt start because I think he's been thinking about it a lot longer than I have. What are your thoughts, Matt?
So while a lot of this was tied to a single availability zone, it also, if you look, Oracle also had an outage at the same time. So my assumption is a shared data center, or Oracle's using Azure, but essentially it was tied to one availability zone or zone in Azure terms, but it did affect other zones, which still confuses me. I'm still trying to get to the bottom of that. But they did do a good job communicating along the way. So I will give them that. Like the alerts across the way was really good. But a lot of times it was just like, we have no update, which I get. They don't necessarily have a full update. Things did recover pretty quickly. So I think really by about 4 or 5 hours, things were back up, if I remember correctly. But they're the long tail of getting the last couple services. And I think even at the end of this, where they called the end of the outage at like 6:40 UTC, they were like over 99% of storage accounts and 99% of Cosmo DB are up. And then they kind of just said, we're stable and we're working on fixing the last couple customers. So I'm just still confused why, 5 chillers they had 2 backups and nothing started up in the right way, which makes me question their whole DR thing. But, you have to have DR for a reason. But they also, I feel like even the HA, because this was tied to one zone, didn't kick over. I was reading many people that they had problems even in the HA. So it feels like there's still stuff tied to the whole region that was still tied to this one zone and this one subset of servers. So I'm still waiting for the full root cause analysis that I'm hoping is going to tie and answer a few of those questions. But if anybody has any other good answers, let me know.
You likely won't be able to share it with us anyway, which is
the more annoying part.
Yeah,
fun NDAs.
It'll be behind an NDA.
Yeah.
But the most enjoyable part of this is that you just learned that Azure doesn't actually have physically segmented locals or availability zones either. So welcome to the Google Club. So that's why multiple availability zones were impacted. So.
Oh, and you also, if you want to get into some of the other DR regions in Azure, you actually have to request access to them, which is also fun.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, I love that. My 2 thoughts on this were, one, it takes me back to a session I went to reInvent many, many years ago, and they were talking about their data center facilities, and they were talking about the chillers in particular, and that they were unhappy with the OEM vendor software on the chillers, that it didn't meet their specifications for how they wanted to handle certain failure conditions, and that it was too tolerant of errors and didn't fail over quickly enough, and so they actually ended up writing their own firmware for that. And these are the kind of reasons why you do that. And then number 2, why the hell is the chiller not behind a battery backup in a data center, for goodness sakes? Why does a power sag impact the chiller like this? This is a terrible design, and someone should be ashamed.
Yeah.
I mean, least condition power, like something. I mean, it doesn't have to be the full battery backup, but you better be making sure power spikes or sags don't kill you like this.
These types of outages are no fun. I know that from personal experience. So, hug ops to everyone who was on site. And judging by the, this release, it was 1 guy.
No, 3.
And now 3 guys. And then they've all hired their uncles. So temporarily. So if it happens again, they can all just run around pushing buttons as fast as possible.
I mean, they now at least have enough people they can play a good game of basketball. Because there's not a lot to do at a data center in the middle of the night. So I understand why there's 3. But I also, shouldn't you have more software to help restart chillers and things to make it better? Maybe that's why it's temporary. Maybe they're going to build more automation or something to not need as many bodies. And then also, you assume that the chillers are all close to each other. They're probably not. They're probably spread across the entire data center floor. So you have to run around like a crazy person trying to restart all 5 chillers that died in this outage. So hug ops.
And there's probably a very long restart procedure, right? Like it's not a single button, just click it.
Well, and I did see in there that when they tried to restart the chiller, there was a pump fault, and without the pump starting, the chiller can't start, and so there was a bunch of comedy of errors, as I like to call them, in these type of scenarios.
It's amazing all the services that would cascade down to. I still remember like the S3 outage years ago in US East 1 where like you just saw every service fail, and it's kind of what this was. If you look at the list of services, it's like 30, 40, 50 services long, and it's kind of reminiscent of the S3 outage where it's like everything went down. RDS went down, like everything went down because of it. So, it's one of those things where everything failed at the same time. And like you guys said, Hug Ops is the best solution here right now.
Oracle continues to expand my favorite service, the roving edge. And now it is roving all over the beautiful green fields and English countryside. Jonathan, you might be able to see this out there, roving the farmlands, conveying with the sheep, all the things that it could do. The Oracle Roving Edge, of course, is their version of Azure Arc, which brings core cloud services to anywhere in a remote location in a ruggedized container, a 2U rack-mount server. One option in a nice Pelican case. Another option, which they call the lightweight unit, that comes with a battery-operated device, is the other option if you have a more secure location that does not need to be ruggedized to give you this capability to have your roving servers roving around the countryside of England.
Since we all know that Oracle sites are just riding around the back of trucks, I find it very, cute that they just productized this feature of their data centers.
I mean, I feel like we should get a fee for that, a marketing consulting fee, because I feel like I gave this to them. But it does sort of make me chuckle every time I see something with the roving edge. I'm like, oh, okay, it's roving. It makes no sense in the context.
So it used to be in a garage, and now it's in the back of a VW van.
Yeah. I mean, at least with the battery, it is actually a roving device. It could rove. It could be in a car now, or whatever moving object.
I wonder how long the battery lasts.
For an hour. With 2 batteries, it lasts 2 hours.
How do you swap them? Are they hot swappable? You gotta have 3 then.
They are not.
Keep one running at all times.
I mean, how long does it take to charge a battery? You got to have enough batteries to handle the cycle time of charging the battery. So it's a complex operation of how many batteries you need. All right, let's move on to our Cloud Journey series. And in honor of Google Next talking about nothing but AI, we should let you know there's a massive AI engineering talent gap in the market. And according to TechWorks, we'll need about 27 million AI engineers to close that gap. And that'll take a lot of things. And so they talk about a few things of interest. And they talk about both the short-term and the longer-term needs for AI. And the short-term solution they propose is prompt engineers. Engineering, they said, is basically scientific. And so most of them are experimenting with AI. Engineers are experimenting with AI already and taking advantage of things like GitHub Copilot and ChatGPT. The natural next step is to become a prompt engineer who is tasked with understanding the limitations of the model, designing a prompt in a natural language, evaluating performance, refining when necessary, deploying other internal data. And however, they don't believe this is a long-term fix. This is a temporary thing until the limitations of current AI models get addressed. But this is kind of where you can start if you're thinking about really getting into AI, is becoming a good prompt engineer.
Yeah, hang on, stop right there. This is no 27 million engineer gap. Those people are customers. Those people are customers of the AI models and the AI services. Like, you don't need to be a prompt engineer to deliver the service. You need to be a prompt engineer to use the service. So I don't see it as a gap. I see it as a potential customer base.
Well, I mean, that's their short-term side, is definitely, everything you're doing now with LLM is prompts. So if you're trying to get into AI, then being a good prompt engineer makes you get better results. And, you heard anecdotal stories about graphic designers can get way better things out of an image generator than a person like me, who's an idiot about images. And so they can get a much better thing. They know the right words to say, the right prompts, and they can get it to basically sing. Or I just get it to kind of go blah and give me something close enough to make me happy, but not really great. But then, they do talk about the longer term aspect of this, is that once you get past this prompt engineering side, you got to get into machine learning skills. You got to learn Python. You got to get into the transformer model and knowing how to build and train models with text data, and then pair that with core engineering skills. And then they basically said non-technical people are often better at getting outputs than technical people, but everyone needs to learn the engineering skills to do this. But 27 million people seems like a lot in the short term, knowing what the issues with AI are and how limited it is in implementation.
I doubt very much whether the long-term things are actually even going to be problems in the long term, because I think The
it's so early.
AIs will build better AIs themselves. Like I don't think anyone working with this is going to need to understand how the transformer model works.
Yeah, I wonder. I mean, it's one of those things like, it's diminishing returns on how long the human stays in the loop to make it better, right? Like, it might make you more effective for longer.
Maybe.
Yeah. I mean, I like to know how the model works, so that way I can give it bad prompts. So that way I can take out Skynet. I need to know how to go the other direction, like to be part of the resistance. They do talk about some of the things around DevOps teams and different skill sets around AI and machine learning pathways. That's kind of interesting. And they do talk about, the global chip shortage is what drives a lot of the demands for efficiency right now. But as the chips get more available, the efficiency needs kind of decrease. Other than the CFO doesn't want to pay for all that cloud computing, I'm sure. But it is kind of interesting to see how this continues to move through the process. But yeah, 37 million, I can't quite wrap my brain, or 27 million, can't quite wrap my brain around that number. That seems.
But is it really just you're going to upskill or change the skill set of current engineers from, something that's close to what they're doing now to that? So like take Python engineers and just get them to be a little bit better in data models, like, or is it this is a completely new skill set? Because to me, this is more of like hey, we can tweak some skills and you will get there and teach on the job versus like this is a new 27 million to the market type of thing.
I think it's even bigger than just, current software engineers, because it's really, some of the examples are given are, like people that are way outside of tech, AI for, doing insurance adjustments or for managing the AC in a very large building. And so I think that the article is largely getting to like, we're all going to become, large language, machine learning experts in order to do basic tasks where we're interfacing with AI. And I think maybe speaks more to where that very high number comes from, because I was rereading the article real quick. It doesn't explain where the 27 million comes from. But I think that's the crazy part, is when you expand it outside of tech and you expand it out into, just common day life, generative AI is going to be a replacement or an augment of so many different things.
I don't think the prompt engineer thing is. I think it's a fad. While the tools are still fairly immature, I think ultimately you won't need to be an expert prompt engineer. Like you don't need to be an expert mechanic to drive a car, and you don't need to know how a computer works to use Excel. I think prompt engineering is, because of what we're seeing now, it's just very, very early technology, and it's very cool. But to use it, you really you need those skills. In the future, I don't think you'll need those skills.
Yeah, and it'll probably hurt you eventually. Like I remember back in the day trying to like tweak search results by like entering words in different orders or leaving out connecting words, or you can minus a word or quote a word. All the little tricks you learn. Then over time, as the search engines got more data and kind of used to that, like it was actually hurting search results after a while, because they wanted it in natural language.
I feel like the same thing with like Alexas or Google, or like Google Homes. Like, back when I first got them at a reInvent, I got the dot from, I don't know, the reInvent in October. The last reInvent that was in October, like you spoke to it in a very specific way. And now if I speak to it in that same way, it just doesn't work.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, everything you learn now will be garbage in 2 years, probably. How to talk to an AI. Fascinating. We'll keep an eye on this thing. We'll keep looking for good AI learning stuff, because I'm trying to learn more about it too. I'm sure you all are as well. Mm-hmm. But that is it for another fantastic week here in the cloud.
See you later.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, everyone.
And that is the Week in Cloud. We'd like to thank our sponsor, Foghorn Consulting. Subscribe on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts, and tweet us your feedback at #TheCloudPod. Or join our Slack channel. Go to our website, thecloudpod.net, for sign-up instructions. I do have an after show.
No.
A couple things. So apparently the big thing in AI is attacking OpenAI.
Sweet.
Which apparently both Meta and Microsoft are really working on doing, which is sort of weird because Microsoft paid a lot of money to OpenAI, but apparently, according to this article, that's what they're doing. So Meta, of course, has Llama 2, which we've talked about and made fun of many times, which is an open source and could compete with bigger paid LM models like OpenAI or Google Bard or whatever else. Meta, of course, is releasing the coding model publicly is seen as a sharp contrast to OpenAI, who has been heavily secretive about its model and how it was built. Because coding systems are very popular. We just have the loaded Code Llama not too long ago. And Microsoft apparently has hitched its wagon to OpenAI in the forms of billions of dollars of investment and likely Azure credits. But they're also cozying up to Databricks, which is positioning itself as the anti-OpenAI. And Microsoft plans to sell a new version of Databricks software that will help a customer make AI apps for their businesses, according to 3 people with direct knowledge of the plan. And my question here for you guys is like, is OpenAI at risk, or is this just kind of everyone with pitchforks trying to say that they're screwed long term? Because my feeling is that until someone really creates killer apps for any of these models, they're all kind of screwed. Because I think we're kind of at the trough of disillusionment phase of some of these AI things. I think we're starting to see kind of, as Office gets it, now rolled out through GitHub Copilot or Office Copilot stuff. You've got Bard now coming into workspaces. I think people are going to get more and more exposure to these things and then realize how very limited they are in their capabilities. And I suspect that it's going to hurt their adoption in the short term until people come up with really killer solutions.
I think these are inflammatory headlines. I don't think that Meta's attacking OpenAI. I think that they're trying to democratize access to it. I think they're trying to do a helpful thing and trying to spread out, access to the model. We talked about it last week and it was a gift, and this article just takes that the other way, and like they're just the same action that we talked about last week. They're saying it's attacking OpenAI. It's not. It's just not true. And same for the Microsoft plans. Like they're offering Databricks through their marketplace. Like, okay, is offering a service on your marketplace really attacking another company? No, it's not.
No, it's how you make money from all of your enemies and your friends.
Exactly.
I mean, it's been a tried and true model for cloud providers forever. Like, yeah, we have a competitive service, or you can just buy that from the partner and we'll get a piece of it too.
Exactly. And it's, I really don't see any of this as hurting AI or anything really other than just inflammatory kind of nonsense.
I'm going to have a point of contention over calling it kind of open source or open. I mean, they may be giving it away for free, but it's about as far from open as you could get, really, because it's a black box that you download. And yes, you can use it for no additional cost, but you have no idea what it was trained on. You don't know if it's biased or not biased or how it's biased, because it's almost certainly got biases based on the training data. I'd be very careful downloading anything just because it's free and using it when you don't know how it's built, basically. Is it trustworthy?
I mean, I think actually we talked about this last week. You were gone because you were cranky, but
very cranky.
Yeah. We talked about this. So actually, they've open sourced the entire model building source code, so you can actually see the sources they're using for the model. You can actually run it yourself if you wanted to go build the Llama 2 model on your own compute dollar with Amazon or Oracle or however you want to spend the money with. You can go rebuild the model, then use your own data sets and your own data sources to help hydrate the model. So it is open source more than a black box, but it is still a very large barrier to entry.
It's like saying that because GCC is open source, that anything built with GCC is open source, even though you don't actually have the stuff that went into it. I mean, can you download every piece of training data that went into Llama 2? I don't know. Maybe you can.
I don't know. I'm sure some of it's proprietary.
I mean, I thought that was the whole offering was the, there's the model that of varying sizes, but then there's all the accompanying software for management, allowing you to sort of tweak it and build your own. So I don't know. I mean,
anyone can download it and build their own models if they've got $2 or $3 million and GPUs.
Yeah. I mean, that's the trick for sure. But I mean, that's if you expand that out to like open source, like no one's very rarely is anyone going line by line in code. And we're all accustomed to downloading stuff that we don't exactly know how it works and trying it out. That's why licenses are a big deal. And, like, I don't know, like I have a hard time sort of seeing this as a nefarious move because I just don't see the benefit.
Oh, I'm not saying it's nefarious. I certainly don't think that Meta has like implanted some information in these models, and at some point, in 2025, they're all going to wake up and start doing things.
No, that's a hacker. That's a social engineering hacker that puts something in there that hits every break or something at a certain time.
Yeah, but the thing is, the fact remains is you can't inspect them. You can't download the data and then deterministically decide whether or not it has been compromised somehow.
But due to the scale, like, sure, I guess they could make it available, but what's the average person or even a medium-sized company, maybe a large company can, but how does an average person then use these? If you had to build it all from scratch yourself, you couldn't. So this is like a, bike with training wheels. Here's the training wheels that are already trained. Now go. I don't need to teach you how to balance.
I just think people should use things with caution, but they should,
anything that comes from Meta, I use with caution and gloves.
Well, and like being raised on 80s sci-fi movies, anything with AI should be used with caution, right? Like I assume all of this is going to wake up and realize
kill us all.
Are terrible and kill us all. Like, yeah.
You just accepted that years ago.
Yeah.
Well, I have another topic I want to talk about here in the after show too, and this is really for our listener conversation here. But I don't know how many of you have listened to other podcasts, but podcast advertising has kind of fallen through the floor in the market, and just as all ad revenue has fallen through the floor. And so if you listen to other podcasts, you probably heard them talk about doing subscribers and listener specials and things like that to kind of make it more engaged with their audience and give you a direct way to pay us for what we do here if you think it's valuable, which is probably like 2 of you. But
thanks, Mom.
We do really appreciate what we're doing here. And so there's a kind of like a general conversation I thought we maybe make a little bit public here of like, I don't know that we've been really successful at selling ads. Foghorn has had the same ad for multiple years now, and we appreciate them. But we do hear from people sometimes like, hey, well, Foghorn just update their ad. And as much as we give them a hard time to do that, they don't update it as often as we'd like them to. So it's a little stale. But, we talked about, privately a little bit, Jonathan and I, as kind of the founders of the podcast, that, maybe something makes sense here. And I kind of, would people be interested in subscribing to the show for, I don't know, $5 a month, $2 a month? I don't know, some nominal amount of money. And then, in exchange for that, we would maybe do something fun, exclusive for them. I don't know what those would be yet, but just kind of want to throw it out to the 3 of you as kind of an open discussion with our listeners. And if our listeners have great ideas, you can email us at the podcast or you talk to us on our Slack channel. But we're trying to figure out, we're not here to make it rich. We're just having fun. We just want to make sure it breaks even. We'd like to pay Jonathan for his show note editing guy, Elliot. We like to pay our podcast show note writer because she's lovely. And we're not salespeople. We don't like selling ads. To be frankly. We tried. But it's a lot of work, and marketing is a difficult business that we don't really want to be in that much. So we'd like to figure out a different model. And so this is kind of the question out to you 3 of you and our listeners.
Yeah, it's kind of tricky, right? Like I go back and forth on this, and I will admit that I've got a little bit of subscriber fatigue, where I feel grew up complaining about if I could just buy one channel from cable instead of having to pay so much for cable, I would just do that. But now that I can buy channels, I don't want to do that. Turns out I feel like I'm being nickeled and dimed by every network that starts their own streaming service. And then, all the music services and then, music, a lot of the artists I follow, there's a lot of Patreon, and there's just a lot of models are out there and so it's on one hand, like, it's great because it's going back to direct market and you're paying for what you use and what you're listening for. And I think that's great, but it is also sort of this trick where the subscriber part, where it's this recurring bill thing, can really add up. And it's now there's AI services for looking at your credit card transactions and detecting subscriptions you don't have or don't use. So it's pretty funny.
Well, again,
so I don't know.
It's one of those things you don't have to do it for everybody. If you don't want to subscribe, then you can still listen to our ad sponsored content, and we'll do a better job trying to sell ads, I guess. Or we can provide, ad-free content, on the day we record. If you wanted want a bootleg version of it, for example, and hear all of our errors and the funniness of us trying to figure out show titles, we can record all that and make that part of our bootleg.
Oh God!
But shouldn't we pay them?
Yeah, maybe we should.
Yeah, we gotta reverse this.
Or or you can do fun episodes like ranking Amazon services, or you could do movie reviews, or you could do things that aren't tech related necessarily. It doesn't have to always be tech. Again, it depends on what our listeners kind of would want in this model. And it's one of those things, like we want to keep doing the show. We want to keep making it. We like making it. It's fun. Even if I paid it all out of my pocket, I'd probably still do it because that's fun for me. But actually, that's pretty much how it is. So right now, I pay for my part of it, and Jonathan pays for his part of it. And sometimes we get sponsorship, and we get paid back, which is nice. And then sometimes we don't. But if you're also interested in sponsoring the show, we definitely love to hear from you. So we'd love to take your money and you can give us as many ad reads as you want to, so you don't have to repeat them every week. That's fine too. But we want to figure out a way to make the show worthwhile. We want to make sure it's something our listeners care about, and we're passionate about it. We love it. And we want to make sure that it keeps going in some level. But this is kind of an open question to our listeners. If you're here all the way to the after show, you clearly care about the show because you made it all the way here. This is why we're talking to you. We're just talking about this in the beginning of the show. And so that's why we're asking you, our listeners, what you think. And so I would love your ideas, love your thoughts. And, I agree with Ryan. Sometimes I was adding up the price of all my TV services now, Hulu, Netflix, all that. And it's like, hey, that's more than I paid for cable. So maybe this new world isn't as great as we all thought it would be.
Yeah, I just don't know anyone I don't personally know anyone that subscribes to podcasts yet, but that doesn't mean...
You know me, I do it.
Oh, well, now I know that you do it. You did not just add it in to your monthly things that you subscribe to.
I do. I subscribe to 2 podcasts, actually, where I get access to exclusive content by being a subscriber, and it's sort of fun. So
cool.
Oh. So anything about... All right, we'll let you guys all go. Have a great week, and see you next week.
All right.
Yep. See you later.
See ya.
Bye.